The flame arrives in 2 years. July 14th, 2028. Los Angeles, the eyes of the world will turn to Southern California for the Summer Olympic Games. The promise is extraordinary. A no-build Olympics. No new stadiums. No white elephants. No debt. A city that already has everything it needs. SoFi Stadium, the Coliseum, UCLA, Crypto.com Arena, the infrastructure of a century of entertainment, ready and waiting. The budget is $6.9 billion, privately funded. No taxpayer money, corporate sponsorships, licensing deals, and contributions from the International Olympic Committee. A model for how the games should be done. Los Angeles did this before. In 1984, the city turned a profit, $223 million. The only Olympics in modern history to make money. A triumph of American ingenuity and private enterprise. The message from LA 28, the organizing committee, is confident, optimistic. We've done this before. We'll do it again. Better. But beneath the press releases and the promotional videos, a different picture is emerging. A city already $300 million over budget. A projected shortfall that could reach $1 billion by next fiscal year. Infrastructure projects running behind schedule, transit systems that 84% of residents call unsafe. A housing crisis with no solution. A homelessness emergency that shows no signs of ending. And now, the added weight of recovery from the worst wildfires in California history. The Olympic flame arrives in 2 years. The question nobody wants to ask out loud. Is Los Angeles actually ready? The phrase sounds brilliant. No-build Olympics. It suggests efficiency, wisdom. A city so prepared, so complete, that it doesn't need to construct anything new. Just show up and compete. Former Mayor Eric Garcetti used it constantly. Current Mayor Karen Bass has embraced it. La 28 Chairman Casey Wasserman repeats it in every interview. No new stadiums. No Olympic Village. Athletes will stay in UCLA dorms. Events will happen in venues that already exist. The phrase is also misleading, because while Los Angeles may not be building new sports venues, it is spending billions on everything else. The 28 by 28 initiative alone includes 28 major transportation projects that must be completed before the opening ceremony. The original cost estimate was $26.2 billion. Current projections suggest $42.9 billion. That's not no build. That's one of the largest infrastructure pushes in American history. Metro rail extensions, bus rapid transit lines, highway improvements, airport connections. The Lax Metro Transit Center, which just opened. The D-Line subway extension, still under construction. Station upgrades across the system. New trains. New buses. None of this appears in LA 28's $6.9 billion budget, because technically, these aren't Olympic projects. They're city projects that happen to be accelerated because the Olympics are coming. The distinction matters. Because when LA 28 says the games won't cost taxpayers anything, they're talking about a very narrow definition of the games. The ceremonies, the competitions, the athlete housing, everything else. That's on the public, and everything else is where the real costs live. Mayor Karen Bass has made a promise that sounds wonderful on paper. A car-free Olympics. In Los Angeles, the city built on freeways. The city where 90% of households own cars. The city that dismantled its streetcar system decades ago and never looked back. A car-free Olympics. The logistics required to deliver on this promise are staggering. La 28 estimates the city will need 2,700 additional buses to transport spectators and athletes during the games. That's more than double Metro's current fleet. Where will these buses come from? They'll have to be borrowed from transit agencies across the country. There are a lot of logistics involved in getting those buses here. One transportation official admitted. But if it is going to truly be a car-free Olympics, we need more than just buses. We're also going to need more train sets. The question becomes, where do we borrow those passenger cars from? How do we get people from the buses and the trains to the venues? The cost of the supplemental bus system alone is estimated between $700 million and $1 billion. Metro is applying for federal grants and trying to identify agencies that might want to buy the buses after the games are over. Meanwhile, the rail system that was supposed to be ready for the Olympics keeps falling behind. In March 2024, the Metro Board admitted that 11 of the original 28 projects could not be completed in time for the games. They were quietly replaced with 11 different projects, mostly operational improvements and projects already in progress. The Purple Line extension to UCLA, which would directly serve Olympic venues. Behind schedule, the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, which would connect the valley to the west side. Not happening before 2028. The goal of having robust, reliable public transit connecting all Olympic venues to hotels, airports, and downtown. Increasingly unlikely. After visiting Paris for the 2024 Games, Maya Boss returned with a stock assessment. The trip, she said, put some fire under our feet. It was eye-opening, not reassuring words from the mayor of the host city. 2 years before the event. Even if Metro completes its infrastructure projects on time, there's another problem. Nobody wants to ride it. A USE unsafe barometer survey found that 84% of Los Angeles residents consider riding Metro trains unsafe. 84%. This isn't perception without basis. Metro's own customer surveys identify reliability, frequency, safety, cleanliness, and homelessness as the top concerns among riders. Students commuting to school describe facing dark train stations, confronting crime, and sometimes carrying self-defense items. One student told, "It scares me a lot, as a rider, that there could be 30 people in my carriage, but if someone were to do something to me, maybe no one would try to stop it because they don't want to get involved." Metro has made progress. Violent crime decreased 16% in August 2025 compared to the previous year. The agency connected over 2,700 homeless individuals to interim or permanent housing, exceeding its goal. New fare gates have reduced incidents at some stations by 75%, but the fundamental perception problem remains. The system designed to move Olympic visitors around the city is one that most Angelenos avoid. And there's another issue. Nearly half of Metro riders don't pay fares. Metro's transit security officers issue fewer than 10 citations for fare evasion per day. System-wide, when enforcement is this lax, the message to potential troublemakers is clear. The Olympics will bring millions of visitors who expect safe, reliable public transit. They will expect to board trains and buses without fear. They will expect the experience to match what they've seen in Paris, London, Tokyo. What they will find is a system that locals consider dangerous. A system where fare evasion is effectively decriminalized. A system that, despite billions in investment, still can't convince its own residents to use it. Los Angeles is not in good financial shape. City Controller Kenneth Mejia has been sounding alarms for months. The city is overspending by $300 million. The budget shortfall could reach $1 billion in the next fiscal year. Last week, state lawmakers requested another $1.9 billion in funding for wildfire recovery, on top of the $2.5 billion already received. The wildfires destroyed infrastructure, disrupted the tax base, and created costs that will echo for years. Into this fiscal crisis, the Olympics arrived demanding attention and resources. LA28's $6.9 billion budget is supposed to be privately funded. No taxpayer money. But there's a catch, buried in the fine print. If the Olympics go over budget, taxpayers are on the hook. City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson said it plainly when approving a revised venue plan. "We absolutely cannot afford that under any circumstance." The venue plan revision was designed to generate an extra $162 million in revenue and reduce risk. The council was specifically trying to avoid a scenario where Los Angeles is hit with a $270 million bill if costs exceed projections. But here's the thing about Olympic budgets. They always exceed projections. Every Olympics since 1960 has gone over budget. Every single one. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics exceeded $15 billion, when the initial budget was roughly $8 billion. The 1976 Montreal Olympics were supposed to cost $112 million, and ended up at $970 million. The 2016 Rio Games lost $2 billion. Los Angeles in 1984 was the exception, but the circumstances were different. In 1984, the Games had 21 sports and 221 events, with 6,829 athletes. In 2028, the Games will have 36 sports and 800 events, with 15,000 athletes. The numbers have mushroomed. Security costs, transportation costs, staffing costs, housing costs. Everything scales with the size of the event. To assume that LA 28 will be the second Olympics in modern history to stay under budget requires believing that this time is different, that the organizers have learned from every previous failure, that nothing will go wrong. It requires faith. Los Angeles has 75,000 homeless residents, the largest homeless population in America. Skid Row alone has nearly 4,000 people living on the streets, the densest concentration of homelessness in the country. Tent encampments, line, sidewalks, in neighborhoods across the city. The crisis is visible everywhere. What happens to these people when the Olympics arrive? History suggests they will be moved, cleared, made invisible for the cameras. On Olympics LAA, a coalition of housing activists that launched in 2017, has been warning about this for years. Their concern is that Olympics preparations will worsen the housing crisis, regardless of whether new construction happens. Policing of unhoused residents has already increased. LA 28 officials maintain their approach is different. The LA 28 Games will not exacerbate the homeless situation in LA, a spokesperson said. Instead, it aims to create more opportunities for Los Angeles and its residents to thrive. But the math is difficult. Los Angeles already has a severe housing shortage. Only 11% of households can afford a median-priced home. The median home price exceeds $880,000. Rents in major metros run $2,800 to $3,500 per month. The Olympics will bring temporary demand for hotel rooms, short-term rentals, and visitor housing. Prices will spike, availability will plummet. Long-term residents will feel the squeeze. Other cities have used the Olympics to expand housing stock. Atlanta in 1996 built an Olympic village that became university housing. London in 2012 converted its Olympic village into thousands of residential units. Los Angeles, with its no-build approach, is not creating new housing. Athletes will stay in existing UCLA dorms. When the Games end, nothing new will remain. The housing crisis will be exactly where it started, or worse. In January 2025, the worst wildfires in California history tore through Los Angeles. The Palisades and Eaton fires killed 31 people and destroyed more than 13,000 homes. Insured losses reached $40 billion, making them the most expensive catastrophe in the world last year. Total economic losses may reach $131 billion. 1 year later, fewer than a dozen homes have been rebuilt. This is the context into which the 2028 Olympics arrive. A city still recovering from disaster, infrastructure still being repaired, communities still in trauma, billions of dollars in damage that someone has to pay for. Governor Newsom has requested $34 billion in federal disaster relief. Only about $6 billion has been awarded. The gap between what's needed and what's available is enormous, and the Olympics keep demanding attention. The city cannot pause Olympic preparations to focus on wildfire recovery. The deadline is fixed, July 14, 2028. The world is coming whether Los Angeles is ready or not. City officials have tried to insulate Olympic planning from wildfire impacts. An amendment was inserted into construction moratorium legislation to exempt fire rebuilding efforts in Pacific Palisades from any Olympic-related restrictions. But the fundamental tension remains. Every dollar spent on Olympic preparation is a dollar not spent on rebuilding homes. Every hour of city staff time devoted to Games logistics is an hour not spent on disaster recovery. Los Angeles is trying to do two enormous things at once: recover from catastrophe and host the world's largest sporting event. The question is whether it can do either well. As the Olympics approach, Los Angeles is preparing to freeze. The City Council is advancing an ordinance that will impose a construction moratorium around Olympic venues and along the Games route network. Within designated impact zones, construction activities will be restricted or prohibited during the Games period. The goal is to ensure smooth operations. No roadwork blocking traffic. No scaffolding obscuring venues. No noise disrupting events. But the moratorium has implications beyond the 2 weeks of competition. The city is granting exemptions for Olympic-related construction from planning approvals, zoning regulations, and permitting processes. Conditional use permits. Site plan reviews. Height restrictions. Setback requirements. Any regulation that could delay or impede the rapid construction and deployment of essential facilities. CEQA. The California Environmental Quality Act is being waived for Olympic projects. The same law that protects communities from harmful development is being set aside so that games infrastructure can be built faster. Watchdogs are paying attention. The concern is that these exemptions, designed for Olympic purposes, will be used for other developments, that the games will become a vehicle for bypassing regulations that normally protect residents. The Nobel Olympics is, in practice, building quite a lot, and it's doing so with fewer restrictions than any other construction in California. Los Angeles likes to compare itself to successful Olympics. Paris 2024 is the model. The French capital used existing venues, repurposed iconic locations, and emphasized sustainability. The Eiffel Tower became a backdrop. The Grand Palais hosted fencing. The games were integrated into the city's fabric. La 28 promises to do the same. The Coliseum, hosting its third Olympics. De Rose Bowl, Dodger Stadium. Venues that are already part of Los Angeles culture. But Paris had something Los Angeles doesn't. A functional public transit system. The Paris Metro moves millions of people daily through a network that residents actually use. Visitors today, 2024 games could navigate the city without cars. The infrastructure existed and worked. Los Angeles is trying to build that infrastructure in 2 years, while recovering from wildfires, while managing a budget crisis, while convincing residents that Metro is safe. The comparison to 1984 is even more problematic. Yes, Los Angeles made money, but the 1984 games were smaller, simpler, and occurred in a different era. Television rights were worth less. Security concerns were minimal compared to post-9/11's requirements. The city wasn't simultaneously dealing with a housing crisis, a homelessness emergency, and disaster recovery. The real comparison might be two cities that struggled. Rio 2016 lost billions and left behind venues that now sit abandoned. Athens 2004 contributed to Greece's financial crisis. Montreal 1976 took 30 years to pay off its Olympic debt. These are the outcomes Los Angeles is trying to avoid. But avoidance requires execution. And execution, so far, has been uneven. 2 years is not a long time. In 2 years, Los Angeles must complete billions of dollars in transit projects that are already behind schedule, must convince millions of residents that Metro is safe to ride, must recover from the worst wildfires in state history while maintaining city services, must balance a budget that's hundreds of millions in deficit, must prepare venues, train staff, coordinate security, and manage logistics for the largest event in the city's history. The risks are substantial. Another major wildfire could devastate infrastructure and divert resources. Anaertequak, always a possibility in Southern California, could damage venues or transit lines. Economic recession could reduce tourism and corporate sponsorships. Labor disputes could halt construction. Any number of unexpected events could throw preparations off track. And even if nothing goes wrong, the baseline challenge is immense. Mayor Bays acknowledged this after visiting Paris. The reality of the clock ticking down to 2028 has definitely hit. One transportation official said, "The crunch time is now. The World Cup in 2026 will serve as a test run. Los Angeles will host matches, and the city's ability to handle major sporting events will be evaluated. If that goes poorly, confidence in 2028 will erode." But the World Cup is a fraction of the Olympic scale. A handful of matches over a few weeks versus 2 weeks of continuous, citywide, globe-spanning competition. The Olympics don't offer second chances. The opening ceremony happens on July 14, 2028. Whether Los Angeles is ready or not everyone in Los Angeles wants the Olympics. On Olympics, LA has been organizing since 2017, when the city won the bid. Their concerns center on housing, displacement, policing, and democracy. The Olympics are a corporate mega-event that prioritizes profit over people. their materials argued. They point to history. Cities that hosted the games and saw housing costs spike, homeless populations displaced, civil liberties curtailed in the name of security. Los Angeles, they argue, is central to this critique. A city with a severe housing crisis doesn't need an event that will drive up rents. A city with 75,000 homeless residents doesn't need an event that will lead to encampment sweeps. A city with a budget deficit doesn't need an event that might leave taxpayers holding the bill. LA 28 dismisses these concerns. The games will create jobs, economic benefit, pride for the region, opportunities for residents to thrive. But the tension is real. In a city where teachers can't afford to live near their schools, where nurses commute 2 hours each way, where the median home costs nearly $1 million, the Olympics represent a set of priorities that some residents question. The debate won't be resolved before 2028, but it will simmer. And if problems emerge during the game's cost overruns, displacement, security failures, the critics will have been proven right. Los Angeles has made a bet. The bet is that a city built on cars can become car-free for 2 weeks, that a transit system considered unsafe can transport millions of visitors, that a housing market in crisis can absorb Olympic demand without breaking, that a budget in deficit can host an event that always goes over budget, that a region recovering from disaster can simultaneously prepare for the world's largest sporting event. The bet is that Los Angeles is exceptional, that the city which made money in 1984 can do it again in 2028, that private funding will cover all costs, that nothing will go wrong. Maybe the bet will pay off. Los Angeles has resources, creativity, a history of pulling off the impossible. The entertainment industry knows how to produce spectacles. The weather, at least, will cooperate. But the warning signs are accumulating. Transit projects behind schedule, a population that won't ride metro, a fiscal crisis deepening, wildfire, recovery, consuming attention and money, infrastructure exemptions that raise questions, a housing market that excludes most residents, a homeless population that can't be hidden. The Olympic flame arrives in 2 years. The world will be watching. The question is whether they'll see the Los Angeles that LA 28 promises, the city of dreams, ready to host the greatest show on earth, or the Los Angeles that exists today, a city of contradictions, struggling to keep its promises while the clock ticks down. The answer will be written in real time, July 14th, 2028. Ready or not.